Welcome to the Jameson Files. I'm Carrie Webber and I'm your host. Thank you for joining us once again and for being a part of the Jameson Files community. Whether you're watching this live on the Jameson Facebook page or you're listening to this through whatever avenue you listen to podcasts, we want to thank you. If you haven't joined us in your podcast realm, we invite you to find us wherever you do listen to podcasts. iTunes, Google Play, or Spotify, we're there, and we'd love for you to subscribe and invite others to do the same. Our goal is to provide content, teaching, guests, and insights that are helpful to you and our dental friends wherever you are in your dental practicing journey. So welcome and thank you for leaning in, tuning in, and being a part of this podcast community. I'm very happy to be joined today by a friend and a Jameson teammate, Laura Jameson.
How about that?
So, Laura Jameson, with an I, is a business advisor for the Jameson Group, Jameson with an E, and it's only meant to be. That's what I've always been saying.
I think so too.
So meant to be that we would be working together. And Laura has, if you don't know who Laura has an amazing journey in dentistry, working in consulting and helping dental practices across the country for many years, including through a time where you owned your own consulting firm.
I did.
And so we're thrilled to have you as a part of our team, and I'm very excited to be talking about a particular subject with you that I know you're very passionate about.
I am so excited to be here. I really am.
The topic for today's episode is PPOs. Do I stay or do I go? And so that is a topic of conversation that we as dental consultants across the country are having with practices over and over again.
Conversations.
Yes. And for me personally, when I am talking to doctors that are exploring coaching and wanting to see what that would look like for them in their practices, frequently they want to explore, I'd like to take a look at the plans I'm in network with, the PPOs that I'm in network with, and have help in deciding, do I go out of network with some of these plans? How do I do that? Is that something that I should be considering? Because they're starting to feel ragged and burn out.
They are.
And in almost like they're in a hamster wheel in the way that they're having to practice today with those plans. So I know this is a very passionate subject for you. What I'd love to talk about with you and pick your brain over is, if this is indeed, for any of you that are listening, if this is indeed something that you are considering or wondering, or you're starting to feel some pains from the plans you're in network with, what are some first steps that you would recommend practices start to look at and discover for themselves within how their practice is running these plans that would make them or help them make the right decisions for them and their practice on whether to stay or whether to go?
Should I stay or should I go now? Honestly, Carrie, I really believe I've been training my entire consulting career to help guide dentists away from being involved as much as they are, so dependent upon the PPOs. When I first started in dentistry, I was working with Dr. Jim Pride. At the time, he was warning that train was leaving the station. Don't sign up for these PPOs. They're going to promise you these new patients. But at the same time, what he inferred, but it wasn't really understood, is that PPOs brought insurance patients who only wanted what the insurance would cover. And so now, to the frustration of dentists who are so engaged in providing under these plans, that's exactly what they're frustrated by. They come in for their hygiene visit because they basically, the patient perceives gets that for free. But when any dentistry is recommended, my insurance won't pay for that. And, you can only put up with rejection so much. And so here we have a profession that we love that's working harder than they ever have, making less than they ever have. And of course, the other consideration is that we have these younger dentists who are coming out of school with considerable amount of student debt.
Yes.
And then they're engaging in looking for, should I work for a corporation or should I consider associating in a practice that I can ultimately buy? And when the PPO reductions are actually understood and seen and evaluated, I think we're going to find a whole generation of dentists who just need to pay off their student debt and are going to choose to go the route of working in an environment where they aren't fully passionate about being in dentistry. So imagine having gone to 8 years plus of years of school, all the student debt, and not loving what you do. Because you and I both know when you love what you do, you never work another day in your life.
That's right.
So that is just why I'm so passionate about this. The fact of the matter is, I think the primary interest in joining a PPO was to bring in new patients. Well, what type of patients are you bringing in? As I said, only the patients that want what the insurance will cover. But more importantly, when you start to see reductions on $1 million practice, so I just spoke with someone who was in $1.5 million practice, collecting only $948,000. So when you think about it, when you really consider a business budget for marketing, is a $500,000 budget for marketing a good idea?
I believe Nate would say, I can work with that.
So yes, Jameson Marketing obviously can help you, but I'm going to tell you, it's not going to cost you $500,000.
That's right.
And the end result, of course, is that the dentist sees that the insurance companies are really reducing their fees by up to 35, even up to 45%. We were looking at today. So imagine you're working for 45% less than what you could charge. Your overhead is 60%. You're actually losing money in this situation. And again, if dentists who so passionately wanted to be in service to, their patients and to provide for the best, I definitely have heard dentists over the years say, I choose not to do these procedures because I actually lose money when I charge the insurance company for this. So I really love the idea of first starting with, what are you afraid of? Should I stay or should I go? What are you afraid of?
I love that, Laura. What I always think about, because you're hitting the nail right on the head, that we go into network with these plans almost as if it is a marketing tool, but it's just because, number one, I'm in debt, I'm just getting started, whatever the case may be. Yep. My community is very much involved in these plans, whatever it is, that this is how I'm going to get new patients, right? But at the same time, they're so afraid to cut one off, to step out of network of one, because they're afraid they're going to lose patients. There's also, sometimes it seems like almost a guilt because we have this sense of responsibility to take care of everyone.
That's true.
But often when you have these conversations, would you agree, when you're having these conversations with clients, they are answering these questions for themselves. In the end, a lot of times they become so full and so beyond their own capacity, they can't even take care of the patients that are coming in the way they need to be cared for. So the fear of losing patients in a lot of ways, in a lot of these practices, is just a fear that they need to give themselves permission to let go of, because
that would be so great.
What are you afraid of, and what are you, what would be ideal? How do you want to take care of your patients? Are you able to take care of your patients in the way that you desire with this model and how your practice is running? It's just very, very difficult. So I think they're answering the question for themselves, but the making that decision, stepping out, is challenging for them.
So, given that you asked, what steps would you take? First of all, the discussion about the fear. What are they afraid of? And once we can identify, well, there's a way to do it differently, there's a paradigm shift that we can adjust for, and help your patients see things differently. So if we could help your patients see things differently, would that allay your fears? So There are a couple of numbers when we're evaluating this objectively, as any consultant, any good consultant will do, is they're going to want to first take a look at some numbers. And 3 numbers that I really believe are important to start with is, number 1, what is their active patient count? Now, a lot of practices don't really know. So I will suggest to you that this can be done through Jameson with the help of Practice by Numbers. And that once we know the active patient count, to compare it to what a general dentist, a single dentist in practice, can manage effectively, the number that you need to know is that 1,500 to 1,650 patients is about what an average dentist can manage without tearing their hair out.
Right. Running themselves absolutely into the ground.
So 1,500 to 1,650 patients. A dentist that we talked with today had 3,748 patients. Okay. So the question is, 1,500 to 1,650, you have ample room to add an associate. Do you want that? And the question really sparks that, well, would I find somebody? Is it, how am I going to find the right person? Am I going to find somebody who's motivated? Am I going to find someone who's a good communicator, someone who shares the same values that I do? Some people will then decide, no, actually I don't. I'm 35, not planning to retire anytime soon. I have student debt that I need to pay off. I don't need to pay 30% to somebody else when I'm only collecting 60% of the fee. So it's a number to consider, and that number is a great starting point from which to decide, all right, with 3,700 patients, even if I had 2,000 patients, I'd be busy enough. And can I risk that 1,700 patients will leave the practice? Those that have the worst, most punitive insurance plans. And that's where we can allay some of the fear. That if they feel they can take the risk, and if the patient stays, great. If they go, we hope you'll be back. But don't let the necessity to stay with that plan be driven by fear at this point. The second number is to take a look at the total number of procedures that have been billed out for a 12-month period of time. Similar to 1,500 to 1,650 being a number to know, 7,500 to 9,000 procedures per dentist, the single dentist on average, can be effectively managed, and that includes the hygienists.
Wow, okay.
And then the third thing to take a look at is how long are new patients waiting to get into your practice?
Yes.
Because that's what we're seeing, even post-COVID, patients, so we're doing this to bring in new patients.
Yeah. And you can't see them. You can't see them.
Could have had a VA. And they can't get in for 6 months, 4 months, 3 months. What is the point? So if we're able to answer all those questions comfortably, then I recommend that we take a look at which insurance plans should we keep, and we take a look at which insurance plans are we most at risk because the punitive reduction is just significant, up to 50% for some, 46 to 50% I've seen with some of them. So that being said, then we hire in some help to help look at the contracts, which ones can be renegotiated, which ones do we want to keep, which ones do we want to disengage from. A lot of times, something I'll add is that the insurance contractor that you choose to renegotiate your insurance plans are able to help educate you on an issue that many dentists don't fully understand, and that's being part of a network under an umbrella, like Dentamax or CareStream. And what happens is now you are being paid as a third party, Dentamax taking a fee to be a MetLife, Cigna, Aetna provider. So the insurance contract renegotiators are able to develop a relationship so that your contract is directly with Aetna or MetLife or Cigna, cutting out Dentamax, cutting out CareSource as a person or an organization that's taking a cut, which is why you're so far, under the full fee.
Yes.
So that's the second step. And then the third step is to realize that there are 3 alternatives for your patient that if you choose to be out of network with some of their coverage, is number 1, many of our patients are reimbursed by the insurance company directly. And to my astonishment, I was out of network for 3 dental appointments. I paid with my HSA card, my FSA card then. And I was reimbursed at almost 100% of the fee. Now, when my clients who have gotten out of network get the EOBs back and they see they've been taking 40% cut and the patient's getting 95% of the fee, that takes away the fear a little bit too.
It does.
Right?
That does indeed.
No risk there.
Yes.
Okay, made a good decision. But a lot of dentists don't know this. They don't know that the patient can be reimbursed directly. So that's alternative number 1. Number 2, and of course, to make it super easy for the patient, we will electronically file. Typically, the patient's reimbursed within a week to 2 weeks.
So you're still providing that courtesy.
We are. We're still submitting it for them, making it easy.
Yes.
So that's awesome. The second alternative is considering membership programs.
Yes.
A lot of dental offices now are seeing the benefit in providing a membership program where they set a fee in advance. The patient is literally paying for the 2 provies, 2 exams, a set of bite wings, and then they get, I will say, to set this not so high as to penalize like you were with the PPOs, but to set it at about 15, no more than 20% reduction in fee or savings. And that the patient then has no limitations, no frequency limits, no maximum per year. In that membership program, they can have any dentistry they want with that 15 or 20% reduction. And I will say, I will recommend don't do it yourself. Don't manage it yourself. Hire someone who's really good at this program. Lastly, we can offer the patient the alternative of sending their records securely, safely. Should they decide to come back, we'll welcome them with open arms. Many patients do. And, when you can give the patient 3 choices, they have time to consider it. If you've really done your job, and this is why you want to hire a consulting organization to make sure your systems are in place, your communication with patients is stellar, that the patient's experience is something they're willing to pay for.
Yes.
So
yes,
that's where we come in.
So much about, there was a lot about that I loved, Laura, but a couple of things that I want to kind of go back on. So much of what you were sharing has to do with your vision for how you want to practice dentistry. It's never too late to clarify what is right for you. You may be practicing in a way, in a model that isn't right for you, or maybe it was at the beginning and it's just not anymore. And that's okay to give yourself permission to say, I want to do this differently. As an owner of your business, you have the right to make that decision, and your vision for your practice can change. But you've got to get clear on what that is, because that clarity compared to where you are now, where you want to go, is going to help you make the decisions and bring the tools that Laura is sharing to help you get closer to what ideal is, so that you can be attracting the right types of patients for you and the kind of dentistry you want to provide in your practice. You can be setting up appointments in the right way for you and how you want to take care of your patients. You can have the tools you need to help your patients move forward with treatment they want or need. And I loved at the end how you were talking about the steps and the paths forward that patients can have should you choose to go out of network with a plan that they may be involved in. What she was speaking to was being prepared as a team on how are we going to communicate this to our patient family.
Thanks for clarifying.
How are we gonna communicate this so that they understand and we have solutions available for them to consider. And I believe, would you agree that many clients that decide to go out of network with plans, yes, they're going to lose some patients, but not all of them. And if we are confident and we believe in the way forward that we are taking, and that and we understand the benefits, it's not just the benefits for the practice. This benefits the patients in the end, because we are clarifying our vision for what exceptional care for our patients is and how we can deliver that. and we are making decisions so that we don't compromise their care.
I'm so glad you did go back to vision, because frankly, as a benefit to the patient to have made the decision in the first place, really can incorporate, our values, our vision for the practice. The type of dentistry that we want to do is restricted by what the insurance contract is with your employer. So that's awesome. I'm so glad you did come back to that, circle back.
And when you give yourself permission to clarify that for yourself, I feel like that takes some of that fear we talked about away, because sometimes that fear is misplaced. And I think you spoke directly to that by sharing that there are numbers that are telling a story about your practice right there in your software. And if you were wondering, where do I even begin and how do I start to have the confidence to make the decision that maybe in your mind and in your heart, you want to make, but you need something to give you that confidence that it's the right decision for you, go find those numbers that Laura was introducing to you. So let's repeat those one more time. What are those numbers that they need to go look at to see, are they even in a realistic window of, think about what is ideal in terms of patient care to me in my practice.
Okay.
And so those numbers, do the numbers in your practice reflect how you could ideally take care of those patients? So what were those numbers?
So 1, 2, 3. One is active patient count, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 to 1,650 per dentist is healthy, manageable, effective.
Okay.
7,500 to 9,000 procedures per producer is effectively managed.
Okay.
And then of the number of new patients, how many new patients are you seeing? How long do they have to wait?
Yes.
Before they can get into the office to see you?
Yes. About a are investing in external marketing. Let's just use the marketing, the $500,000 marketing plan you're in. Let's say you are getting new patients from other avenues, but if you can't see them in a timely fashion, they're not going to wait for you. They're not going to wait. And so you have to understand, as you're weighing the benefits and the risks, that's a risk that you're kind of doubling down on, is that they would wait as long as they need to wait to see you. And I'm not saying that you're not extraordinary and they might wait, but that's a big risk to take.
But you know what? They'll wait because they only want what the insurance will pay for. And so their intention is only to join you as a hygiene and continuing care patient.
So, just such a great starting point and some great perspective, Laura, on, do I stay? Do I go? How do I make this decision for myself? There are numbers to look at. There are steps you can take. There are tools that you can bring into your practice or resources that you can lock onto to help you make the right decisions, execute those decisions, and get yourself on a healthier path forward for you and what ideal is for you in your practice. So I appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing this message with everyone. I hope that it does give someone some courage, and that they can live the life that they were intending to live.
That's right. The model of success in Jameson is to see fewer patients, but do have a more impactful relationship with them. Give yourself the time and the space and the ability to really build those relationships in a way that helps them get healthy for a lifetime and helps your practice be healthy for a lifetime. So if you have any other questions, if you want to explore what this looks like for you, we encourage you to visit us at our website, jamsn.com. But also, if you haven't looked into our online learning platform, Grow, I invite you to look there too, so you can get some clarity of your vision and start putting into play systems and skills that can help elevate your practice to make these decisions and fully support the practice of your dreams. It's grow.jamsn.com. Laura, thank you for being with me today.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Carrie.
And thanks to all of you in the Jameson community. Thanks for joining us once again for another episode of the Jameson Files. Be well, and we'll see you next time.
Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Jameson Files. Visit us online at jmsn.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play Music, or Spotify. Do you have questions or topics you'd like for us to answer or cover on the next podcast? Email us at podcast@jmsn.com.